Hey, I briefly wanted to go over some of Clip Studio's animation settings because they're not exactly intuitive. And if you've done any animation in Flash or Toon Boom, it's slightly different in its setup. That doesn't mean that it's more complicated necessarily. It's just there is a different learning curve, and I wanted to kind of show where some of the important stuff is so that when you want to start animating, you have a better idea of how to get started. There are a bunch of other videos out there for like doing more of the complex stuff. This is really just the beginners where to find stuff. So you'll have to excuse the poor mic quality, but the first thing that we want to do is activate the animation section or open the window itself. And please keep in mind that only Clip Studio Paint X has animation as far as I know. Or if Pro does have animation now, it's probably going to be limited because that is one of the main differences between the two price points of Clip Studio. So we're going to go to Windows and we're going to open Timeline. Sorry, my eyes wouldn't work for a second. You also notice down here that there's a little area where you can toggle this window, which is usually what I end up doing. When you open this up, you're probably going to see just a completely blank area. That is because you have to essentially create the timeline. Over here, what you'll do is press the one on the right that says Timeline, New Timeline. This will allow you to name it, allow you to set the frame rate, and playback time is going to basically tell, and this is all editable after this point, but this is going to create essentially the playback loop. So right now it's set at 50 frames. I'll probably shorten it by the end because I'm just using this to make a looping GIF. And there's also scene number, shot number. These are for more if you're doing actual animations, but a lot of people that I know, illustrators that I know, are going to want to use this for things like simple icons or to add something to their illustration. So, again, there's other videos for this. I'm just going to go through the basics. So, I've already made a timeline, so I'm actually going to go back. Now, all animation is going to be contained within what is called animation folders. There's one over here, and what this basically says is that anything within this folder is treated like a frame. If you scroll down, you'll see that everything else, all my other layers for this piece, they are treated as, they're separate files, they're separate layers, and they are completely controlled by the layer section over here. So essentially, ignore them. They're going to be turned on the entire time, or turned off depending on how you have them set in the layers. Excuse me, I'm still got a cold. So let me see. So I need to make a little magic sphere to go here. So what I'm going to do is go over to these little with the animation folder and cell icons over here. I'm going to do create new animation folder, and what you'll see is that is created an empty folder over here with the animation icon attached to it. And you can have multiple animation folders going on, have different areas kind of controlled by that. For instance, I already have a folder set up that is a blink animation. The green there is because I have onion skin turned on, and I'll show you a little bit more about that as well. But for now, we're going to go to the new folder, and you'll see that over on the timeline it's completely empty. So what we'll do is we'll click new animation cell. It's right here. And you'll see that created a fresh frame and also created a new layer here. So let's go down here. like I said, I just need to start roughing out this little magical ball thing that she's holding. It'll do. So essentially, how Clip likes to handle this is that no matter what, your files, your layers over here, will be preserved. Whoop, there we go. So if I want to work on this layer independently, I can. And what the animation is doing is saying it's attached to the name of the file. So right now, or the name of the layer. So right now the layer is layer 1. So if I go up ahead 2 frames, make a new animation cell, you'll see over here we now have a layer 2. And now I'll turn on this, which is onion skin, which will let me see kind of that ghost of the previous frame. So this is particularly useful if you're doing more like sketch animations and stuff, but for this is also useful because I'm going to be doing like a little goopy thing. And let's go ahead and add another one. But you'll see that these are labeled now 1, 2, 3, and over here 1, 2, 3. And I'll show you why that's important in a second. So there we go. Say that I want to put, how am I going to word this? Let's say that I want to put an in-between shot between 2 and 3. Right now it's labeled number 4, but I can do, say, 2A. You'll see down here that that is now labeled 2A. Here's where Clip Studio is kind of interesting because it lets you preserve those layers the way I was talking about. So I can go to where the 3 place is now and click this with the little link, and that is specify cells. And it will show up all of the layer names of what you were working on. And I can click 2A, and suddenly this is no longer showing layer 3, it's showing layer 2A. Same thing, go over to that, and I can respecify that. So what this essentially lets you do is you control the layers strictly by their name, but it's non-destructive. So say that you sketch something, you sketch a frame, but you're not sure if you want to keep it or not. Instead of having to delete it, you can create a new layer, draw a new frame, respecify the cell, and see if it works better. But you always have that backup. And that's really powerful when you start actually using that for more in-depth animation. It also lets you do in-between frames a lot easier. You can do your keyframes first and then do what I just did with labeling 2A, 2B, 2C in order to create those in-betweens. And you are 100% in control of how to specify that. Right now I'm animating on 2s. This would also allow you to, obviously you can change the frame rate, but this would allow you to, decide to move to animating on 1s if you prefer it, by simply going into one of the frames and respecifying it. By the way, to specify you can use the icon, or you can right click and it will let you do the same thing. Obviously, like most other animation programs, playback is going to be space. Oop, it should be space. or is it enter? It's slightly different for iPad and PC, but the playbacks are right up here too. And onion skin, you can set how far you want to be able to see the frames. Right now I think I just have it for 2 frames back. And like I said, you can also compile this with other animation folders, and you can even go in and render these particular frames independently. So it's a pretty powerful tool, and when you are ready to save your final piece, you have the timeline how you want it. I export GIFs, but you can also export, I believe, as AVI and MP4. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot I didn't cover, but hopefully this gives you an idea of where the very basic tools are, where the basic controls are. Honestly, just give it a try and play with it, but I hope that it makes sense that the folders and how those work, because when I first started, that was probably the most confusing part for me, was just finding out how Clip Studio worked compared to other animation programs. And if you're starting completely fresh, this is kind of a novel approach, using the animation folders and specifying the cells by the name of the layer. So I hope that this was helpful, and yeah, go animate some cool stuff, my dudes. Thanks.